Hey, yeah, just a quick note. Well, I don't know how quick, but I was reading a friend who, I'm not a religious person, but I respect people who are religious, who are good people, basically. And she is one. She's a Christian, a devoted Christian who's a very good person. And she was talking about how the way that she grew up, um, they didn't mess with worldly things like peace and justice and that kind of stuff. It was like, no, 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 you just got to save souls. You just got to convert people to Christianity so that, Jesus can, I mean, I don't know, I guess whatever their eschatology, however you say that word was. Um, so, I mean, the point is, the world is like, you know, corrupted, fallen. The best you can do is just get people to be Christian. That's it, and of course, this has all kinds of negative consequences in some cases, but the church itself has often supported injustice or turned a blind eye to it. So so yeah, and then I noted, or I kind of thought that that's similar to what non-dual practitioners say. Also, as Angela says all the time, the best you can do is wake up and keep waking up. That's the best thing you can do for the world. Um, and it got me to thinking about, I don't know if I'm using spiral dynamics correctly here, but there's a sense of like you can go back to where you were, but from a higher vantage point, if that makes sense. I'll give you an example. When you're a kid, it may say you have like bad parents who scare you, right? And they're not nice to you. So you keep the peace, you do whatever they say because you're afraid, right? And then one day, maybe when you're a teenager, you get old enough to be like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm not going to do whatever you say, right? And I'm going to confront you, and I'm gonna even maybe tell you to go to hell sometimes, right? So that's that. And then maybe decades pass and you mature and you realize your parents are never going to change, right? And you can't change them. It's not your job. It's not your responsibility to change them. It's not within your power to change them. So now you have a sense of like, okay, now I keep the peace. I hold my boundaries or whatever, but I don't confront them. I don't fight with them because there's no point. Like it doesn't there's no benefit, right? You might as well kind of, appreciate them for who they are as much as you can. This is assuming quite a lot of healing has been done, right? So you're back. I don't know where I was on the screen, but anyway, you're back to the point where you're doing what you did as a kid, which is keeping the peace. Although now you can hold boundaries, so that's a difference. But still, it's essentially you're keeping the peace from a vantage point of now you're the adult, right? So it looks superficially the same, but it's a very different feeling. Um, and it's a very different scenario. So there's all kinds of things like that. So, I mean, it could be that, one part of the spiral is, convert everyone to Christianity. And the next one is sort of materialist, rejecting all religion, rejecting all spirituality, rejecting all the woo woo crap, and being like, no, I'm not going to bother people and try to make them agree with me because um, I think I have all the answers, right? And I'm going to fight, you know, for worldly justice, for um, for peace, fighting for peace. I mean, sometimes, I mean, that's a whole other discussion, but then the now you have spiral dynamics teachers. They don't say to evangelize, and they don't try to evangelize as in push anyone or try to force anyone or try to block the path of anyone who thinks differently. So again, it looks superficially similar. Oh, all you need to do is wake up. Um, and it also allows for, if you feel called to do something for peace or justice in the world, like, I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh, from what I from what I've been told, he helped clean up after villages that were bombed, by, the US and others, and he felt called to do that. I mean, it wasn't exactly going and lobbying Congress or whatever, as if that would have done any good. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? But he did what he felt called to do, which was clean up after villages and try to help people take heart when everything seemed totally lost. And he kind of kept that flame alive of just human goodness when everything was so awful. And that can just look delusional or like placating, like taking it on the chin when you're being abused. I don't know, there's all these things that just seem slightly different from a slightly different perspective. And I think one of the well, another thing that is that I thought of is how, you know, fundamentalist Christians say, like, you present them with scientific proof or scientific evidence, like the dinosaurs or the Earth being this many years old, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, God made it that way to test our faith," right? Um, and then non-dual practitioners, you say, "Well, hey, I bought these curtains a month ago." They're like, "Did you really?" Maybe what's happening right now is the only thing in your memory is essentially implanted there to test your faith or to fool you into thinking there's anything other than this moment right now. And again, there are differences. And what are the differences? What are the actual, um, what makes it different? And here's what I say to that. When you're a kid and you're afraid, you don't have options. You just don't have options. Um, when you're an adult and you're keeping peace because there's no point doing anything else, you have options. You have lots of options, and you're free to choose this. Actually, you could cut them off. You could fight with them. You could insult them. You could drag them on Maury Povich or something and try to, I don't know, shame them. You could post their dirty laundry on social media. You have lots of options, and you can search within yourself, not not the external environment, within yourself for what you believe is the right thing to do, and you can do that. And that's a kind of freedom, a kind of robustness that that's not so miserable either. It's not nearly as miserable as just being sort of cowed into submission when you're a helpless child. As far as the dinosaurs, that's kind of a brittle worldview because it doesn't convince anyone who's a materialist, for one thing. Um, and it's kind of you can use that as a catch-all to deny anything, any evidence in front of your eyes. Whereas the non-dual version is like it's more like it's asking you, what is the evidence in front of your eyes? What does it and so it's radically empirical in a way that sort of turn your brain off Christianity or turn your brain up to 11 materialism. Both of those are kind of more brittle and more prone to breakdown um, and just not convincing to people who, I mean, I guess whatever. I guess I'm defining non-dual practitioners as both intelligent and fearless as far as what does the evidence in front of me actually say. People who want the truth more than they want anything else, but they don't bother anybody else with it. Like the magic of YouTube is that it's a way of disseminating information without pushing it on anyone. People can just find it if they find it compelling. and explore threads that they find intriguing. So yeah, it can there can be like an ick feeling when you're like, that's kind of sound like that stupid thing that I was told to do as a kid, and so it takes maybe post rationalization. That might be all this is. Maybe all anything is anything that's a story or an explanation is a rationalization. And yet it does feel like what I'm trying to like an amoeba, like I said in another video, like I'm just trying to sort of move toward, you know, what seems good to this organism or this avatar or this whatever's behind the avatar. I try to just, yeah, move toward whatever feels more robust and more testable, more empirical, more elegant. Because I told you, I mean, I got a physics degree, and you get even just to quantum mechanics, and there's a lot of crap beyond that too. But you just get to quantum mechanics, and at the same time, it's astonishing the degree to which it can predict things to several decimal places, and it's also astonishing the degree to which it gets real ugly real fast. As far as you get to these differential equations that are based on uh, approximations, and then you run into infinities and you have to renormalize, which sort of wave a hand to get rid of the infinities and be like, okay, okay, the infinity's not there anymore, so now it makes sense. But um, yeah, it's not satisfying. It doesn't feel. It started to feel brittle itself. Even if it can predict things, um, it can't explain anything. And not that non-duality necessarily explains anything, but maybe it kind of leapfrogs over all of that, mentation and let's break it up and bust it up and get down to the very bottom of it. I thought that would be satisfying when I started my physics degree. It wasn't. It wasn't satisfying. And not only that, but kind of incidentally, careerism is so rampant in physics that actually getting to the most interesting questions is not that easy because there's no funding for it. And even if, I would ask I would ask professors questions about, is math something that's inherent to the universe, or is it just something that we made up based on we have 10 fingers and, even though they're all from the same hand, right? Um, we see discrete things and then we map that onto, uh, a system of counting, one, two, three, four, five. And then it's kind of, we see what we've projected onto the world, and we miss, actual living in a lot of cases, actual flow, actual connection, actual the real questions we have. You're not even allowed to ask them, essentially, in most physics departments. People just look at you like you're crazy. Like, they say go to the philosophy department, and then that's a whole other that's a whole other mess. So yeah, so yeah, non-duality is what makes the most sense to me right now. But as I've said before, I'm not going to worship at this altar. If something else feels more elegant, feels more empirical, feels more, I don't know. That's the thing when sort of you're born with uh, a seeking mechanism or a tracking mechanism or a sensibility of A, that elegance is a good thing, and B, what elegance is at all. What can you say about that? I'm just an amoeba. I'm just doing what seems like the next thing to do. So, anyway, just some thoughts.